Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's NBA Sharp Betting Breakdown here on the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast. I am your host, Michael Fiddle. Today is Wednesday, May 14th. We have three NBA games to break down. Game 5 in both the Knicks and Celtics series and the Warriors at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Can the Knicks close these series out tonight, as well as Oklahoma City Thunder at Denver for game 6 as they just took the 3-2 lead. We will break down those three games in a rather shorter episode because in 24 minutes from now, just about, I got to take Bronny to the groomer. Or if she overhears me, to the luxury hair salon, Bronny. She is not a fan of that word. Yeah, we also need to say that today, a little unexpectedly, this doesn't happen frequently in year-over-year calendars. Today is one of the busiest betting days of the year for me. I've made it pretty clear around these parts. I handicap the NBA, the WNBA, and the NFL. Sometimes I will get sent information from other sports, from other experts, but those are the three that I really have my teeth into, and I'm knee deep in the weeds, understanding what's going on in those betting markets and getting down my action regularly with volume. Today, the NFL schedule is being released. I will be sending out the first batch of NFL futures in the WHOP. I know who has an easy schedule. I know who has a hard schedule. There are certain games that are priced. We are going to get a host of week 1 odds once we know those matchups. We have power ratings already created. We can understand what the price of those spots can be. We can understand the price of look at spots. We can evaluate win total markets and so much more. So, for example, the Chicago Bears, they have a ton of really, really hard games and some really winnable games. And what I need to see is the way that the schedule breaks for them. We know who plays who because we know which divisions are playing each other. We don't know when it's going to happen. So rest advantages, travel advantages, or disadvantages on those fronts. And the way that these games are stacked is going to be a huge deal. And the NFL markets are going to move today. And I am going to be getting my action in as part of that wave. I also have the WNBA starting on Friday. Preseason ended on Monday. We got games starting on Friday. We already have prices. I already have 6 bets placed in days 1 and 2 of the WNBA. I already have 4 futures placed. But as the market is going to start moving, there's going to have to be a reevaluation and a reevaluation of probably the entire WNBA futures market today and tomorrow before we get to the games. And of course, we have the NBA. So all 3 of my sports collide today unexpectedly. A huge day. Kind of exciting for me that Bronny will be at the groomer because that is 2.5 to 3 hours of me getting some good alone time to get some work done. And then you get an exhausted dog who's been awake for that whole time. So by the time she gets back, she is so tired. Taylor says, Fiddle, is there not a preseason in the WNBA? Taylor, did you not see the New York Liberty playing the Antelopes? Because they did. Mixed Scoop says, what up, Fiddle? How you doing, Scoops? He says he's scooping up these winners right now. Dilante is here talking about the Pacers and how they're going to fare in the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Celtics or the Knicks. That is something that we will talk about as the Pacers advance. All right, let's share the FanDuel odds screen. Remember, as we go through this slate, anything that I mentioned is something that I bet was released in our WHOP chat. You can find that link to sign up in this episode description on YouTube, in my Twitter bio, or in the podcast description if you are listening on the audio feed. Like I said, $100 to sign up for the month. If we ever have a losing month, the last losing month was in November, we will give the next month in completely free credit. We get ahead of these closing lines, and we believe closing ahead of the market leads to consistent winning with good volume. So that's been really good. It's been a great season. If you leave a review, we give you 2 free weeks. The NFL futures, the WNBA plays will all be found in there as well. Let's break down these 3 games. I just got a text from the groomer. We have 20 more minutes to get through this. That feels like enough time. The New York Knicks travel to Boston to try and close out the series against the Celtics with obviously no Jason Tatum after the Achilles injury and the report that he has already had surgery. Really sad stuff. Really scary. Apparently, Achilles injuries, I feel like an asshole saying this, but apparently Achilles injuries, notice I say apparently for the 3rd time, are not that painful. And so I remember, like, I think the badass example is Richard Sherman on the sideline going, yeah, I tore my Achilles, and saying it and being like, no, I'm done, and staying on the field, not on the field, but on the sideline, watching his team for like half, and then going into the locker room, and then immediately getting diagnosed with a torn Achilles like later that day. We know Kobe took free throws on the torn Achilles. We know Damian Lillard pretty much walked off just like shaking his head like he knew it was done. So torn Achilles, apparently not that painful, but Jason Tatum's reaction to it, honestly, was you knew instantly that it was an Achilles because he looked so scared and he immediately grabbed for it. And he's screaming like he's so upset, and he's got his hands on his eyes. He's grabbing at that part of his foot. We saw the replay where the direction in which he launched, it was not an ankle turn moment at all. And it was like, yeah, that's likely an Achilles. We get the news. Hopefully all good things come for Jason Tatum. Hopefully he comes back strong like some NBA players have from recent Achilles injuries, notably Kevin Durant after he sustained the Achilles injury against the Raptors in the finals, and he has come back pretty strong. Remember, Brooklyn gave him that 4-year max contract, and they said, we know you're only going to play 3 of these, but here's still a 4-year max, and he was still pretty fantastic throughout his Brooklyn year. So I hope Tatum can get back to where he was. I do believe that he will. It really is shitty for the Boston Celtics, but that brings us back to this game where Celtics are a 4.5-point favorite at home, a total at 208. I do believe these are pretty much the right numbers to have here. If you consider that the Boston Celtics were a 10.5-point favorite at home for these games, this series, and Jason Tatum is worth about 5 points to the spread, maybe that's like probably bang on that one. And the reopen at a lot of shops was Boston Celtics minus 5.5. And then there has been betting action, which has taken the Knicks, which has brought this down to 4.5. So I think price wise right now, this is a perfect price where it feels like a 50-50 line. I talked about this on the show when we did this on Monday. When I say a true 50-50 and you're betting into minus 110s, you are paying 52.38% implied probability. So if you are betting into what really feels like a flat 50-50 market and you're paying 52.38, that is like the basis of gambling and not grabbing plus EV tickets and getting ahead of the closing line and doing all these smart handicapping strategies that we do, which, you know, to a degree is fine if you do have an opinion, if you do have an angle. I recommend playing it smaller when you're at a flat market because it is harder to gain these edges. There are less outs on the back end if you change your opinion later on. But yeah, I would just say bet smaller, but you can do it. I don't really have much of an opinion. I don't really bet with my opinion. I wouldn't say follow my opinion because when you follow my betting advice, it is not based off my opinion. The total at 208, I think, is pretty eye-opening as well. It pretty much has stayed right here the entire time since open. And that was the price prior to Jason Tatum's injury. So we went into game 4 with, I think, a 209 as the close. The game would go over. Game 3 went over as well. Game 1 and 2 went under. I have played all 4 totals in this series, and I am 4-0 on the total. Under, over. This one I will be sitting out. I just feel like, again, perfect price, and I don't want to bet into it at this point. I'm not surprised to still see it this, I was going to say this high, but 208 doesn't feel like this high. This close to where it was prior to the Tatum injury does not surprise me. We talk often about understanding the replacement player and how the strategy might change a little bit. The Boston Celtics are still going to launch threes. They are going to replace Jason Tatum with Sam Hauser in a lot of minutes. Sam Hauser was upgraded to probable for this game. He is not a good defender. He is going to be waiting on the three-point line for catch and shoot opportunities. Jason Tatum is a phenomenal defender and rebounder. We should get some offensive rebounding opportunities increase for the Knicks, which means putting up another shot in within 14 seconds or less. And so a lot of those reasons would help you bring towards an over despite Tatum being out for this game. So I think the total is the correct price. I would have played the over definitely if this had shot down to like 204.5 or 205 on the Tatum news. Not saying that he's not worth that to a total. He's obviously an over player more than an under, but just considering the replacement option that the Celtics have and considering that they're going to be at home for that role player shooting that is going to come into this game, I do think it is just a well-priced, pretty much stay away spot at this point. I did play an under on a Jaylen Brown points and rebounds prop, 33.5 to the under. Felt like that was an overcorrection of the line, especially fading the rebound opportunities as his usage should increase, as his playmaking should increase, as his opportunity to crash the glass on threes should decrease. Let's go to the Golden State Warriors at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Played the Timberwolves at -10 at the open. 10.5 started showing up, which I still think is on the board. And when I saw the 10.5, I said probably still playable because it probably reaches 11. It would end up getting out to 11.5, obviously, after the previous Minnesota Timberwolves really handling the second half against the Warriors in Golden State for game 4. You come back to Minnesota in this spot. There was like a late surge for the Warriors bench, but the Timberwolves held on. They still covered. Now they go back home. Potential closeout spot, potential quit spot for the Warriors. The Warriors get down double digits in this game, and maybe early, and maybe the Wolves are shooting hot. I just don't see how the Warriors can stay in this one. They're going to have to be in it throughout the entire game to really have a chance. Wouldn't be surprised to see some late steam come on the Warriors as it consistently has, and the for opening and since then market has been on the Timberwolves primarily. There's also been some movement towards the under, notably today on this game. We see FanDuel here at 202.5. The entire board was at 204 yesterday for this game. Now we have circa 203, FanDuel 202.5. DraftKings 203.5, BetMGM 202.5, Caesars 203, Offshores 203, Bookmaker 202.5. So I'm going to see, is that DraftKings 203.5 still there? Because if it is, nope, it is down to 202. I was using an out of date on screen. Or it literally just moved because it's still there on the on screen and it's about to move. Okay. I was going to say if you saw a 203.5, if you do have Fanatics and you could still bet there, congrats. I'm jealous. Apparently they have the 203.5 to bet towards the under on this Warriors Timberwolves game. Check for your price. Maybe if you have a 203, you could stretch it there, but that seems to be where the sharp books are leaving it. Bookmaker, which notably is a very sharp book, has it at 202.5, but -112 towards the over. So a 203 feels like about the right price. 202.75 maybe. So if you can get above that 203.5 and still play this under as that movement comes in this morning, that would be something to be of interest. If you still find the Minnesota Timberwolves at 10.5, Caesars, Bet 365. And some of the sharper books are showing that again this morning, so I wouldn't be surprised if it started to come back at like FanDuel or DraftKings momentarily. I would also be interested in a Wolves -10.5. So either a Wolves -10.5 and an under 203.5 would be the directions that I'm looking for. Do not parlay those, because it's showing you that you would get plus 227. And those don't feel overly correlated. I mean, you have to just hope that the Warriors can't score at all, and you should be getting a plus 264 for a two-leg SGP, which is still a ripoff from True Odds, which would be plus 300. And so looking at this, I mean, I wasn't even planning on saying don't parlay them, but just like seeing that, it's just gross, gross, gross. Let's move on to the Oklahoma City Thunder at the Denver Nuggets for game 6 of this series as OKC tries to close it out. Minus 4.5 was a line that I played. I do think they get the job done. I really just consistently think this is the better team, and I just think that one of these days Denver's going to have their woes game. Denver's been playing incredibly well, but they have one of their Denver woes games every so often where they actually lay an egg, and they really haven't had it, and I just think that it might come at the worst time for these Denver Nuggets. And so minus 4.5, I think, is a very fair price if we consider that games 4 and 5, as we were previously in Denver, closed OKC minus 6.5 and 7. So the adjustment to 4.5, because a few games have been played with mixed results. I mean, OKC even won 2 of those contests. So I'm going to go with OKC minus 4.5. And I also think now is a great time to come over here. Oh, it is 140 now. I will pull up the market for this and check where the best available odds. But the NBA futures title winner, Oklahoma City Thunder. Hopefully we can still find it at a minus 130, but this is a phenomenal price. No, minus 140 across the board. DraftKings apparently has a minus 120. Yes. Share this tab instead. Hold on. Let me log out. Have there been any good questions that I've missed? John, isn't there a stat mentioned before? Yes, John, that is a regular season stat. Anything for golf that you like from Trey Williams? That is, if you go back to the beginning, Trey, first of all, it's a great question. If you go back to the beginning, I was like, it's WNBA, NFL, and NBA that I handicap. Golf is one of those sports where I just completely rely on Mike LaFemina. You can follow him on Twitter at MLaFem10. I texted him yesterday asking about this stuff. So I completely defer to somebody else. I do not handicap golf. There wouldn't be anything that I like. It would be, hey, I followed this person at their plays and hopefully at their exact numbers before the market moved on some action that comes in. Because while they are not a market mover, Mike is not a market mover. He is someone well aware of the way and direction that these lines are going to go. Okay, let me share this DraftKings screen. And we have the OKC Thunder minus 120 here at DraftKings. I think that's an absolute no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. I like this a lot. I have 2 units right now invested in Thunder futures, and there will be another unit placed when they get through the Denver Nuggets. I will be getting to like what I normally consider a max position of 3 units. I would say at this time when the NBA is really reducing its volume, I'm going to hit a couple of NFL futures. There's going to be a handful of WNBA games, but my liquidity should be pretty high right now. I plan on hitting this Thunder thing in multiple ways, potentially exceeding max exposure because there will be hedge opportunities on the back end if I want it, if I need it. There will be hedge opportunities if the Thunder are down games in series. Like for real. There was someone who responded to me on Twitter that they were looking for ways to hedge a Nuggets future in ways that were not OKC in the series price. And there is no way to do that. Like you cannot, and I strongly urge, do not try and hedge. I don't want to like use that example, so it feels like I'm calling that person out directly. I'm not. This is a common thing. This was something that we were asked yesterday on Buckets Live when I was on Buckets Live with Matt and Brian Fonseca, where someone in the chat said that they had a Halliburton Eastern Conference Finals MVP at like 52-1, and that's a hell of a ticket. And they were wondering if they should take other candidates for Eastern Conference Finals MVP as hedges. Does he take Siakam? Does he take Turner? I threw out like you have to consider taking Brunson or the person on the Knicks side, and it would be pretty tough to say. So you'd have to wait until game like 3 or 4 when the candidates really whittled themselves out. But hedging in those markets in indirect ways is just dangerous. I really advise not. I really would just go with the normal direct hedge so you do not get yourself really, really caught up in a bad spot. A indirect hedge that doesn't go well, like that gets in that essentially reverse middle, Polish middle zone where you end up losing all the bets because OG Anunoby wins Eastern Conference Finals MVP and the Knicks win. Like it is that is a really tough pill. It could be a bankroll killer because you're overexposed trying to find hedges and whatever. Just like stick with the original ticket, be ready to lose the original ticket if that's what it means. Try and ride it out until you have a direct hedge position, potentially the Nuggets in that situation getting back to a 3-3 game and having more outs with OKC in the series at a better price, which is essentially a money line for game 7. But I do like this OKC -4.5 for game 6. That is a bet that I absolutely played, and I would absolutely be taking them to win the West. What's the win the West odds? I mean, -260. They're going to be a -350 or higher, and probably should be way higher against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are going to be a -500 favorite or greater, and likely should be greater against the Pacers or the Knicks. So there will be outs if the Thunder get through the Nuggets with what we're looking at now. And I personally hopefully won't even be considering it. But this is just a great price for where the Thunder sit now. I really, really like these Thunder futures. And could you play the SGA MVP instead of the Thunder stuff? Sure, I'd rather not in the same sense, because if it's a 5-cent difference, then I would rather just be able to get the direct hedge options in my back pocket if I do need them later on. Okay. I think that does it for these games. I think OKC -4.5 is the best price on the board right now. I think the under 203.5 for Minnesota Timberwolves Warriors is certainly actionable. I think a -10.5 would be actionable as well. Let's show the, oh my God, we are right on the nose for when I need to go take Bronny to get her nose hairs trimmed. Here is the I have to remove that. You guys can get really lucky and pause the screen and see what WNBA stuff was in there. We will be back. I see Ian going, I'm so sorry. It's okay. It's okay. Ian, watch this. Who cares? Who cares? A lot of those lines you can't even still get. But we'll be talking about the WNBA on Friday. We will be hitting whatever games are left in the NBA and doing a WNBA preview of the slate that starts then. Obviously, I already have some bets down and I've gotten down on it. One of them, as I just showed you on the screen, was the Atlanta Dream -3.5. Hello, Atlanta Dream -5. Nice to see you. One of them was the Minnesota Lynx -6.5. Lynx -7.5. Hello, nice to see you. We will check in with the WNBA market on Friday and go over game by game. If you want access and you want to come join us in the WHOP and you want to get the NFL futures and you want to get the WNBA picks in real time so you can get ahead of these lines, as well with the NBA playoffs that are going to come, join us in the WHOP. Again, $100 a month to join the chat. It is found in the YouTube description, in the podcast audio description, and in my Twitter bio. Thank you to Ian in the back this morning. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to Bronny for not causing a fit, because her ass is going to the groomer. Like I said, we'll be back on Friday morning, same time as usual, to get down on it. Some words from Patrick Beverley as we say peace out, and y'all subscribe to my podcast while you're asking me all these questions.
Y'all subscribe to my podcast while y'all asking all these questions.
Don't forget to subscribe to the pod. And if you're a kid, listen to your parents. Listen to your parents.
Listen to your parents.
Subscribe to the pod.
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the pod.